To conclude our search, we interviewed young entrepreneurs and people with extracurricular backgrounds.
Hello, I am Kaino Thompson Fotanga. I am third dan black belt and head instructor of class Taekwondo.
Tal of Lava, my name is Josefa Domingo Inari. I work at iSpy Radio. I do the morning show 7 to 10, and I also work at Sleeping Giant Films.
From a martial art perspective, an ideal man and woman is confidence, sacrifice, family orientated, being able to defend themselves, being respectful, having certain disciplines in their lives.
What it means to be an ideal man, in my own perspective, I think an ideal man is somebody who provides for their family. Somebody who, no matter whatever happens, always thinks about on the good side, the bright side. A lot of things that I've learned so far from the culture is respect. Respecting your elders and respecting others within not only the workplace but your community, but always know to know your place and know your ground. Know that you have a voice and you can always voice your opinion when you know your ideas are worthwhile and you know you can achieve the goal.
You can help in a lot of areas. You can help teach them about self-sacrifice. You can teach them about being confident in their own abilities, confident in themselves, to stand up for themselves, being able to defend themselves. What the youth would benefit from sort of this change is that they become more confident, being able to speak out, specifically talking about domestic violence. Most of the time it's women who are the victims. In martial arts or Taekwondo can help give them confidence to speak out, to defend themselves and to keep themselves safe through physical training, spiritual training.
For me personally, like taking up Taekwondo, yes, Taekwondo has broken that barrier where like every female, like any female, any male can take up Taekwondo. It's not like a male specific sport, no. Like all genders can take it. It helps build leaders. So it can be a man and it can be a woman too.
I think it all comes down to how the young generation sees martial arts. A lot of kids that come in here, they think it's a form of violence, but it's a form of self-defense. It also has to do with spirituality as well. We come in here, we meditate, we free ourselves from our ego. Every martial art, there is a spiritual impact. It would help definitely with a lot of them going through a lot of challenges in life.
Samoa is getting into that age of information. In order to understand what the outside world's got for us, we need to be updated, like with the internet. And so the benefit is everyone knows. Everyone's in the know. Everyone's in the circle. Social media, websites, learning this and that. The bad thing about this influence is that the culture is slowly drifting away from the younger people. That's why I think it's key that the education system slowly get back to like teaching the Fat Samoa, which I think is key because you know the saying in order for you to know yourself, you got to know your culture. That's everything for us Samoans. My background stories is that I never finished school. I wasn't a big fan of education. Not big fan of learning. I wasn't a big fan of the educational system here in Samoa. I thought it was limited. This is something that the government and the people running the show in Samoa should create more opportunities for the younger people. Because you know, nowadays it's not everyone wants to be a lawyer. No, not everyone wants to be a doctor. Not everyone wants to be a mechanic. You know, there are people out there who want to be dancers. They want to be singers, and they want to do this profession like full time. And that, I believe, is one of the markets that we should crack into. I've always followed the saying, when opportunity knocks, you got to open that door. That's what I've been living by so far. So as soon as I left school, saw an opportunity, went to radio, been doing that for a while. Big fan of cinemas and movies. I worked at the cinemas for a while. It was enough for me, man. That's my dream. And so I've been very blessed lately to work with a number of people with Sleeping Giant Films and iSpy Radio to give me that exposure. They're helping me out to nurture my talent. I haven't finished school, so I don't know much, of what I know now. I know the basics, but when it comes to stuff to do with the world, I need help. I left the education system, but I'm not done learning, and that's what I think everyone should keep on doing. Never stop wanting to know. Never stop learning.
cry. Women are inferior in every way. Why? Preconceived notions only created to bring each other down. Wow. Stereotypes, limited rights, battles of identity that we fight. To sum it up, we can say a car driven by division blinding us with its headlights. Headline reads, I am a man, so I can do what I want, say what I want without much consequence. But that sequence is a con. Now I'm way past gone, hiding my emotions with my pieces that are broken. Having little to no respect, all because I fear vulnerability and openness. Doesn't make me less of a man, no, it just means I better understand how the ways of old, when carried as an etiquette, can be quite cold. The ideal idea of a person, I feel, has become a diversion from all the possibilities that can blossom if we let our minds grow.
From my upbringing, what I think an ideal man is just someone who knows when to stand his ground and knows when to sort of just calm down and assess the situation before sort of diving into, being aggressive or whatnot. And also the idea of humility. It's not an easy thing to do, to be humble. You should be humble, but never let people treat you like a doormat. Yes, it has changed for sure. Coming through high school, going through foundation, you have on one end of the spectrum sort of this athletic, good-looking, well-built person. Then you have the other end of the spectrum, the person who has his nose stuck in a book, who's very, what people would consider, smart. And it sort of goes back and forth. The ideal sort of guy or kid, boy in our class was like the fastest kid who could run, right? So we're like, okay, that's what we're supposed to live up to. And then going into foundation, like, maybe it's this kid who's smart and who's always like doing good in class and answering all the questions. Maybe I should be like that guy. And then you get to a point where it doesn't really matter anymore, because you can be successful in either a sport or at school. It's not for everyone. Sports is not for everyone. Being an academic student is not for anyone, and that's not a bad thing. So I think, again, balancing act, just finding that middle ground and what you prefer to be an ideal man or woman in your own generation. I think pursuing it has made me, a little more confident and outgoing. If you would tell me like back then that I was going to do it or that I should do it, I would never agree with it. I would never want to even think about it, because I was sort of so afraid and in this box that I put myself in. But I think pursuing it, has definitely let me sort of come out more, branch out, and sort of explore the other sides of me that I never got to. It's helped me a lot to sort of build my character, and I'm very, very thankful for that. And just make sure that you are enjoying what you're doing. Because if you're not, it's useless. Don't go because someone told you or that you're seeing someone. Just make sure that what you're pursuing is what you love, because as one of the many sayings, I don't know who coined it or came up with it, if you turn your career into a passion, you don't work a day in your life. So I think that's very important for everyone to know.
Olo ingoa o longi, Johnny Junior tau lafo se sele mai la fango sa ilua. Vai moso sa kaua ia sa paikia. You might have seen me in my past lives as a presenter for a kids TV show called What Now. I was also a stunt double for a guy called Popo on a film called Take Home Pay. Now, when you ask what makes an ideal man or what makes an ideal woman, you're really asking to what are we measuring it to? Like a lot of us, we look around society now and we measure it to magazines, movies, film, stores. You look around, what do you measure your masculinity and your femininity to? For me, there's no other place but your culture. It's not a matter of masculinity, femininity, because that's a measurement from the Western world. Is a man versus woman. But for us, we had everything. And a lot of us, I think that's the problem, is that when we become detached from our culture, we become detached to our purpose and our, I guess, way of being, if that makes sense. I remember back in the day in Avele, for example, my teachers always used to warn us, be careful when you go over to, Iaku because you might get lost. Don't allow yourself to be measured by other standards or anyone else's measuring stick of you. Look to your ngangu'u, look to the gifts, to the culture that God gave you. I think, to be honest, also we weren't out to promote any ideal man or woman. It's just ideal us ideal Samoans. For me, it kind of showcased all of the types of Samoans, or males and females. You know, for example, you might get the stereotype in the bar scene where that big guy is just like, "Holy, I'm a," you know, like you don't really realize, you know, that a lot of the big island boys in Samoan culture are just really big teddy bears. Like you look at the character dynamic of the story of Take Home Pay, and it was really, really good because his character Alama, you know, was all about contributing back to the family, all about giving back to the family. You know, whereas Popo, he symbolized another, you know, I've got family members like that. You know, we know people like that in our families who say, nah, you know, who question, who are like, why do we have to do this? Why do we have to do that? You know, and a lot of the time they don't get the answers to their questions, so they just go with whatever they feel. Like Popo, he just ran off with the money. So it was really cool kind of seeing those two characters like kind of go through that, because it kind of gave you perspective of like, oh, you know, this is what you got to be very careful of when change comes. You know, you don't allow change to take over fully. Like if anything, through the telling of our films, I really, really pray, I really, really hope that it creates conversation for us to have many more talks. Our stories are valid on the screens now. There is no such dream that is big enough to be impossible.
So to summarize it all, let's review our findings. We found that defining ideal gender roles in Samoa is no longer limited to a black and white concept.
Our people, both male and female, are able to become leaders in their own fields.
Whether it is in performing arts, academia, the media world, or even in sports.
All these areas that used to be considered strange to typical Samoan have now become more accepted in our modern culture.
Will this cause a disruption to our traditional values and what makes us Samoan? Well, let's look at it this way.
Think of our ideas as a tree. In order for it to grow well, it needs its roots for stability and its leaves for nourishment.
The roots being the traditions of our ancestors, and the leaves the opportunities of our generation, in which we can bear successful fruit.
So what defines ideal gender roles for Samoan men and women today? We can conclude that it is someone who embraces the values of past and present generations for the sake of building a bright future for our people.